know what's going on today. I'm like,
Snowed in.
I think my mind is like lost today. I don't know. It's one of those days, you know.
It's the weather. It's the weather, Billy. It's cold. We just come out of that snowstorm. You get snowed in up there?
No, we didn't. We didn't get hit that bad. We only ended up with about 4 inches. It's supposed to snow again tonight. But did you get it bad? I heard it. I heard it went out.
Not too bad. Not too bad. But man, I'm gonna have to get another snowblower. I better hurry up and get. I hope this next one doesn't be too bad. I'll have to pay some kids to probably shovel around until I can go and get me another snowblower.
Now what is before we get into boxing? What does that cost you, man? I mean, back in the day, you pay a kid $5. You pay $5, right? And I learned it the hard way when I tried talking one of my kids into mowing the lawn. And I paid $25, and then the next time I'm like, "What? Aren't you going to do the lawn?" Dad, I just don't think it's worth $25. What? What are you talking about? What do they soak you for?
Union wages now. Union wages.
Damn. It's like
you get 2 or 3 kids, man. It's gonna cost you $150 if you get a good job.
Yeah,
do a decent job.
Listen, you're in trouble when they can take credit cards, right? when the kid knocks on your door and he says, "Don't worry, I can take ATM, credit cards, whatever you got." You're in trouble, right?
Yeah, union wages, man.
Jeez.
Well, sign of the times, man. You got to pay them.
I don't know, man.
Hey, listen. At least the kids learn to earn an honest dollar, man.
Yeah, well,
you got to help them.
Yeah, and they're already starting with the thing. If you're not going to pay me $100 to shove your walk, I might as well just sit home. It's like, wait a minute. That's what got us into trouble. That's why all our jobs are overseas now.
Well, they tell you how much before you do it. When we were doing years ago, you do it, and then your neighbors or whoever, they give you, they just give you what they thought it was worth, and you were happy. You walked away.
Yeah.
$5, $10. Now they'll tell you,
right.
Hey, that's going to cost you $75 between the two of us. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and if they shovel the little path to get to the door, they put the snow right the hell back, don't they? Anyway, hey, Larry, some sad news before we started our show today. Cedric Kushner. And I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts on him that you could share with our audience.
Hey, Cedric Kushner, back when really boxing was really booming in Atlantic City, guys like Cedric Kushner, Ron Katz, Frank Gelb, all of those guys came through Atlantic City with their fighters. Now, I remember Cedric, as I recall, Cedric, I believe, had something to do with Michael Elijah in his early part of his career, I believe. And Cedric had, Cedric was one of the promoters for that big tournament that they had with the heavyweights back in the day. I mean, these guys were very creative. They were very, very, dedicated to the sport of boxing. And once again, what we talk about all the time, these guys were all about putting the best in there against the best. And they really made boxing what it was, a decade or so ago. And it's a great loss to the sport of boxing with Cedric.
Yeah,
he has done a lot to the development of a lot of the the champions and the fighters from the decades past. And he's going to be missed in the sport of boxing. He's been off the scene for quite a while now. I know he hasn't had, he's had some ill health over the past couple of years. And, I understand that he had a heart attack and he passed away. So he's going to be missed. Another one of the boxing family gone, hopefully to a better place.
That tournament you mentioned, what everybody remembers about that is he had the suitcase full of money at all the events,
Yeah.
And one of the last things he was involved with, I think pretty much the last, promotion he worked with was David Tua.
David Tua. Yeah, I was trying to think of David Tua.
He worked with David Tua. But, when back in those days when he was, at the height of his boxing career, he was a big guy. He was overweight and stuff, and I had seen him years later. I did not recognize him. He looked great. He had lost weight, and I talked to him about it, and he said he owed it to his dog because he would walk with his dog, and he watched what he ate, and he got in really good shape. And at first I thought he was sick because he lost that much weight. It was almost like 100. Half of him was. And gone.
You weren't used to seeing him that.
No.
It takes a while to get used to seeing these guys when they lose a lot of weight like that.
Yeah, and then to hear that he died of a heart attack kind of caught me off guard because it seemed like he was healthy. So. Yeah, I agree with you. We're definitely going to miss Cedric, that's for sure. But this past weekend, kind of a weird thing happened in this fight. On paper, all of us were looking forward to Rios-Alvarado 3. It was the rubber match. It was on HBO. I mean, it had all the makings of a thrilling fight. I mean, why wouldn't we think it wasn't going to be a thrilling fight? The first two were both good, and they went either way. And what we end up with really is a catch-22. On one side, I loved what I saw from Rios. I mean, he looked, his hands were fast. He was accurate. He was moving around the ring. But then again, how much was it the lack of effort by Mike Alvarado in front of his hometown? Then he says, he had some legal issues, and then he says, I just wasn't prepared. I'll be back, and all of this stuff. And I'm saying to myself, I don't know if Denver's going to give him a chance. That's like the worst thing you can do is just lay an egg in front of your hometown like that. What's your thoughts?
Again, when all of these excuses come, I just can't stomach. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't this. I mean, where's your pride? I mean, you're in front of your hometown. You're fighting. Certainly, it could be one of those career-defining fights, and you're not prepared. I mean, come on. I mean, Rios. Okay, I thought he fought. He really fought a good fight. Alvarado, I just thought that he didn't put forth the effort. In the beginning, I had said that I thought it would be a toss-up. But then, I said, well, maybe Rios will come through, and he did. But Alvarado, I mean, he was very disappointing. I've seen him, the first two fights he fought better in the first two fights than he fought in this fight. And then when they come along with these excuses, I mean, this is that's what I can't stomach, is these excuses. So maybe he's at the end of the road. I don't know. He was very disappointing.
Well, what's your thoughts on, I mean, Rios was taking it to him. There's no question about it, and it looked like, pretty much after the first 2 minutes, it looked like Alvarado was saying, I'd rather be someplace else right now.
I'd rather be someplace else. I'm in the wrong place tonight. You know what I mean?
Right, and then the way it ended was really strange because it's almost like the corner saw it coming, and when he got dropped at the end of that third round, the referee's making the count, and it almost looked like he wasn't going to get up, because he was letting it go just a little too far. You know how we always say, as a fighter, you better start rising at 7,
well, I say at 6.5.
Yeah, because you never know. If the referee starts speeding up the count, which is, kind of when their adrenaline's going and stuff. So, I mean, if you're not on your way up at 7, you're cutting it close, I think. But
that's right.
In any event, he jumps up after he says 8, and then, you think he's going to get waved off, and he kind of jumps up just at the 9 count. He continues. He gets through the round, and he's immediately sits down and tells his corner he can't see, the fight is over. I don't want to. And the corner didn't. They're going to him, no, and they're whispering in his ear. Now, obviously, we don't know exactly what they said, but I had to believe, Larry, that they were saying, don't quit on your stool. Go out there and at least take a shot and go down or something. Don't quit on your stool. He wouldn't listen to them. The line about how many fingers am I holding up, the doctor holds up 2. He goes 4, and they stopped the fight right there. He was crucified on our post-fight show. No one that called in felt that he was telling the truth at that point. What's your thoughts?
Well, I agree. I don't think he was either. He was looking for the easiest way out. Okay, so that was it. I mean, it was what you saw is what it was. You know what I mean, Billy?
Yeah. I mean,
well, I don't buy it. You know, that's what it was, man. He was looking for a way out, and he saw it. He grabbed it. That was it.
I just, I said earlier in the week, here's a guy, he's fighting the rubber match. It could be a big, it was a big fight dollars-wise, and it could have, he wins the fight, he's going to get another payday. I mean, how do you not get jacked up for that fight? It's against your arch rival, so to speak. I mean, obviously, some of these things, and maybe if we get a chance, we'll get into Jermaine Taylor, too. I mean, some of these guys just seem like they're losing it. On the undercard, Gilberto Ramirez, this guy, I kind of like the way they're moving him. To me, they're moving him the right way, and this fight was supposed to catapult him into a title fight, and then what ends up happening is Maxim Vlasov gives him a tough fight. I think he learned a lot, Ramirez, in that fight, and I hope that his team, gives him another Maxim Vlasov, just so he can, dominate the guy. He certainly didn't dominate Vlasov on Saturday. What's your thoughts on the fight?
Well, it was a good fight for him, and they should keep him right at that level now. Don't drop him down to a lesser opponent. Keep him right at that level, and move him, because the kid has a good skill set, and keep him right there and move him on. I think he's got a good future. Yeah, but he looked decent in that fight. I liked it.
But what I'm saying is I don't want to see them give him a tougher opponent. I don't think he's ready for.
Just keep him right at that level, though.
Right.
I don't think they should go and get him a lesser level.
No.
Just keep him right at that level.
Right, until he dominates that level, then he's ready. Right. And that's what that's my way. That's the way I think that fighters should do, because then you're legit, And anyway, it'll be interesting to see on that. And with that said, a lot of news out about. Let's touch on Jermaine Taylor real quick. Here was a guy that. Was a world champion. He lost his title. He had the bleeding on the brain. He was out of boxing. He got all of the stamp of approval to come back in, and he actually did the impossible. I didn't think in a million years, especially with the level of opposition he fought in those couple of comeback fights, that he would win the title, and he did, and he was all set for his world title defense, and then he seemingly lost his mind. I mean, first he gets arrested for shooting his cousin, then he throws a brick through a window, then he's at a Martin Luther King Day parade pulling a gun on somebody because there was no candy for the kids.
Family.
I mean,
threatened the family.
Yeah, the whole family. It was the parents and the kids over candy. And he recorded it all himself and was justifying it. To me, that's not a sane guy. He ultimately is in jail and getting evaluated. What's your thoughts? Is it relative to the injury? Is it drug-related? Is it just a combination? I mean, this isn't the Jermaine Taylor I met.
Well, I think it's a combination of all the madness that's going on. Now, the position that I took against Jermaine Taylor and the position that I take against any fighter with these brain bleed, okay? And we talked about Lou DiBella. I remember when Lou DiBella walked away from Jermaine Taylor, because he felt like Jermaine Taylor was a shot fighter, that he should stop fighting, and then all of a sudden he reversed it. And I got a lot of respect for Lou DiBella. And I think Lou DiBella said somewhere recently, because I think he's back doing some business with him, and, the rationale is that, he can look out for him, or he could pick who he fights or whatever. He's a world champion. I mean, you can't pick. He's supposed to be fighting the best that's out there. But now, as it relates to his behavior, see, I kind of try to pay attention a lot to the research and the studies. And the first thing that came to my mind with all of this craziness that's going on with him is these football studies with these brain injuries that they've studied with these football players and some of the erratic behavior that's going on. Even recently with the Ray Rice and some of the other stuff with these football players. And I'm kind of relating some of this Jermaine Taylor madness to some of that. And I'm, kind of associating some of this behavior with the brain injury. Now, I might be way out in left field with my thinking, but that's just the way I've been looking at this. This behavior pattern that he's showing is very, very peculiar. And it's all occurring, post this brain trauma that he's had, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that they better start taking a closer look at this situation, because something is not right there. Something is very, very wrong, and I think that it's worth looking at least taking a look at it.
I just want to know what the rules are in the state of Arkansas. I mean, in New York and New Jersey, the first time you got caught with a gun, you wouldn't have the gun back. They wouldn't have given it back. I mean, it just seemed like they were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, and then he just went off the deep end. But I have some interesting numbers here, actually. You mentioned head injuries in football. I had there was an article that was printed in the New York Times, I think 2 years ago, from neurosurgery. A neurosurgery group. You can actually get there, neurosurgerytoday.org. But anyway, they did a study, and they compared football and boxing. Some interesting numbers I'll just throw by you real quick. In football, out of all the high school, now think about how many kids play high school football. I mean, there's a high school within every 20 miles of each other, with football teams. So of that, they tested high school players, college players, and pro. At the high school level, 15% of all with concussion. 15%. 15%, which is kind of a big number. Now, in college, where the amount of players is substantially less than high school, the numbers went down. And they actually, the college level, especially NCAA, they have special helmets that they've started using, etc. They reduce it to 10% of all of the college players have had a concussion, or at least reported a concussion. When you get to the NFL, which is way less than college, 20% of NFL players have suffered a concussion. When you compare it to boxing, of all the boxers that were listed as pro when they did this survey, only out of 10.3% of boxers who report any kind of an injury, which is kind of, you would have thought that there was higher. It's a combat sport, cut, eye cut, something like that. So 10.3 isn't a bad number, but of those 10.3, only 1.6 is concussion. So, the misconception that boxing is so much more dangerous than football, the numbers don't lie, it seems, No,
I don't think that boxing is so much more dangerous, but I do believe that these concussions, regardless of what the numbers are, I do believe that there is a significant amount of brain damage that is done with these concussions. And I believe that when a boxer or any athlete who starts to demonstrate this erratic type of behavior, especially of a violent nature, I think that it's worth looking at. It's just worth looking at from a different perspective to see if there's a relationship there. That's just my own personal opinion.
It seems like there would be. But and finally, you knew I was going to ask you. We have to. The big showdown at the Miami Heat game between Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather. They met at the basketball game, but better than that, they actually met one-on-one later that night for over an hour. Both sides have admitted that. What do you see with this? Is it something that, and by the way, they also said that the only stumbling block right now was how the pay-per-view would be handled, which is, to me, is a good sign. I still think, I have a funny feeling, Larry, that they're going to announce this fight on Sunday, because what better time to announce the biggest fight in boxing history, at least of late, than on the Super Bowl, when I think And now maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a Jets fan and I'm disgruntled and everything. But I think that if they announce Manny Pacquiao against Floyd Mayweather on Super Bowl Sunday, it's going to take over the conversation. I think more people will talk about that during the game than pay attention to the game. What's your thoughts on that? And most importantly, what's your thoughts on that meeting? Do you think it was something that was a big move in this whole thing?
Well, every time I get my hopes up, Billy, I get disappointed. I thought really for a minute there that this was a done deal because of things that I had been hearing from people close to the situation. So I really don't know, but I hope that it does happen. And I'm kind of taking a page from your comment last week. How can a guy who calls himself money turn down this much money? I mean, it's such a contradiction, So I'm hoping that it does happen. I really don't believe that it's going to take over the conversation, take over the interest of the Super Bowl, because I think people are a little tired of it now. I think that people are just a little fed up with the bullshit, on again, off again. And I think there's still a high level of interest in it, but I'm predicting right now that if the fight does take place, it's going to be a great disappointment. It's not going to be anywhere near what the fans expect it to be. It's just going to be a normal fight, not worth what you're going to have to pay, at least $100 probably for a pay-per-view. So I've pretty much lost my interest in the fight from that perspective. Certainly, I want to see it happen. I think that Pacquiao and Mayweather both owe it to the fans. I think that unless they fight each other, there's always going to be an asterisk by their name, in the annals of boxing history. So, I just hope that they begin to see the picture and that it does happen. This is probably the closest they've ever been to it happening, them meeting face to face. It's certainly a good sign that it's near being done. So let's just hope for the best.
Well, I think that Floyd can't go anywhere anymore without, when people see him, when he's at these games, they put his picture up there and people start chanting, fight Pacquiao, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I think that, everything we've talked about for these last couple of years of him not fighting and us saying things like it'll haunt him, there's going to be an asterisk next to him and all of these things.
Right.
And I think that both of these guys, both Floyd and Manny, are sick of everyone asking them, even if they didn't want to fight each other. I think they're at that point where it's like that kid is screaming in the background. Finally, you say, just give them whatever the hell it's going to take to shut them up. I mean,
well, they got to fight. And you want to know, frankly, I'm really not interested in seeing either of them fight anybody else. It has reached that level now that I'm not interested in seeing Pacquiao or Mayweather fight Amir Khan or any of those guys. I'm not interested in them in seeing Pacquiao or Mayweather fight anybody else other than each other. And I think that a lot of fans feel the same way.
It's funny though, Larry, because I agree. I want to see the fight. I want to see that fight, and I want to see it next. However, I got to admit that I don't hate either one of those other two fights. I happen to like Manny Pacquiao against Amir Khan. I also like Floyd Mayweather against Amir Khan, and I like Floyd Mayweather in a rematch against Cotto. I like those fights, but I don't want them in replacing a possible fight with Mayweather Pacquiao. I think it's marinated enough. We got to eat the damn thing now. Otherwise it's not. I don't think it'll ever lose interest.
So let me ask you this question, not to cut you off though. And I understand where you're coming from, but would you predict, or do you really feel that Amir Khan would beat Mayweather or Pacquiao? I can tell you right now, and you know I like to stay away from predictions, but I tell you right now, Amir Khan will not beat either of those fighters. So I already know that Pacquiao would beat Khan and that Mayweather would beat Khan. And I feel that any of the guys in that top echelon, I would pick Mayweather or Pacquiao against either of them, against any of them.
I mean, I would too, but Khan poses. Amir Khan's got punching power. He's got blazing hand speed. He seems to finally got used to the 147-pound weight class. If he fights Manny Pacquiao, what he has with Manny Pacquiao is a guy willing to exchange with him. And although Manny could drop him and knock him out because his weakness is his chin, Amir Khan, Amir Khan also has some pop too, so he has to decide if that's the style fight he's going to fight. Plus, they've already sparred many times together. As far as Floyd and Amir Khan goes, Floyd's, and just like you said about the potential fight with Pacquiao, Floyd isn't going to engage. He's going to fight a cautious, defensive-minded fight and win on a decision. So he's not going to engage. So we're not going to see an exciting fight from Floyd if he fights either one, Manny Pacquiao or Amir Khan. But what Miguel Cotto did with Floyd the first time out, and whether it was Floyd still, getting his legs, so to speak, or whatever, he was able to get Floyd against the ropes in the corner. He just didn't do the right thing once he did it, So it would be interesting to see a rejuvenated Cotto get another shot. Listen, I'm with you. I want to see the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight before anything else. But then after that, if that fight is done and it's over, whoever wins. And then what? Everybody's going to say, well, who's the next in line? Well, those two names are probably the only other ones, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. After that,
But we can't be forced to wait. We can't be forced to see them fight somebody else and then say, oh, we'll fight in 2016. It makes no sense, even though it makes financial sense. It doesn't make sense for us. And I think if they do let it go, if they don't fight this year, I think that they're going to lose a lot of juice if they don't fight in May. If they don't fight in May. Yeah.
I agree.
So I think if they fight in May, everybody's going to forget what we've been through.
I agree.
So, but listen, I would ask you what your thoughts were on the fights this week, but it's such a terrible weekend for boxing that I'm going to give you the time off. Speaking of time off, Larry, we will not be doing a live show next week. We're going to be in Florida doing some stuff, so we'll be back the week after, all right?
Yes, I know. I know about that.
I meant to reach out, but something's wrong with my mind today. I'm like, I don't even remember my name, I think. But
no, but I knew you were going to be in Florida because you had mentioned it, I think, on one of the shows.
And
I saw it somewhere.
One last thing I want. I lost a bet, right? Well, my man, nobody here, he's a longtime listener of the show, and he bet me on the Deontay Wilder Bermain Stavern fight, and I lost. I picked Stavern. So I had to wear TMT gear. That was my loss, right? But here's the thing, if I would have won, I would have got a bottle of scotch, right? So he finally sends me the TMT gear, and I wore it on yesterday's show, and it was a shirt that was called Mayweather Da Vinci or Da Vinci Mayweather or something like that, and it had a picture of Floyd, in a gold picture frame and all of this stuff. I mean, the shirt was a good quality and everything else, but Larry...
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
You saw the show? You saw the show?
Yesterday, right?
Yeah. Did you hear how much it cost? Well, this is how he really earns his name money. Because you know what he feel? You know how we complain that he's always fleecing his fans and he's charging this, charging that. He's always bragging. I got a piece of every hot dog you're eating. I got a piece of the soda. He brags about that. Well, all these guys that are wearing TMT, either they got tons of money that I wish I had. $70 for that T-shirt. It was I said it was gold shirt. It didn't have gold in it, all right, but it was just gold color. $70. I felt bad for the guy who he won the bet, and he had to send it to me. Plus, they soaked him for another $8 in shipping. You know, the poor guy spends almost $80 to send me a shirt to wear. You know, and I just couldn't help but think, you know, these poor Floyd fans, man, they don't get it, man.
Well, hey, listen, they enjoy it, so hey, let them enjoy it. They're fans.
It was a lot. I got to admit, it was a lot of fun, and I really I give nobody here a lot of credit for doing it, because, you know, one look at he writes me an email. He says, I was going to get you a hat, but they want $80 for the hats. You know, like, jeez. Oh man, you know, it's pretty funny. But hey, Larry, listen, stay warm.
Crew.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, it's the money team. Means you can look at it a lot of different ways, right? But listen, my man, stay warm, and we'll talk to you when we get back from Florida. All right.
Okay, Billy. All right, buddy.
All right, brother. Take care. That's Boxing Hall of Famer Larry Hazzard with his thoughts on a bunch of stuff, and he thinks I'm wrong. That they're not going to announce it this week, and it's not going to take over the Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens. Hey, listen, I'm going to take